Today I have here with me my classical guitar. I play on a Cordoba of the luthier series, C9 specifically. Now, you don't have to get one of these guitars, as I said. However, if you look for a classical guitar, just look up classical guitar, you can find so many different brands, ones that are different sizes depending on how big your body is. I find that this one works well for me, but this is not what I started on when I was smaller and a kid. I started on a smaller model. So if you are looking into purchasing this type of guitar, make sure that you find one that suits your sizing needs. So first I'm going to go through just the basics of the guitar. This is the body of the guitar, and these are the frets. These are the strings as well. In classical guitar and on classical guitars, we use nylon strings that have a nylon base, and usually the bottom three are covered in this metal. So that is what gives the classical guitar its natural sound that is unlike that of the electric guitar or the acoustic guitar. This hole right here is known as the sound hole, and these are the tuning pegs. We will get into what all of these parts do later on. I also want to talk about what you will need if you are a classical guitar player, or what you should have if you're a classical guitar player if you have access to it. So something that is very important when you have a classical guitar or a guitar, a stringed instrument of any kind, is that you have a humidifier, because the wood on these guitars and on guitars in general is fragile. So especially during the winter months when it gets drier, that wood can warp if it doesn't have access to a humidifier. Now, you can go and search for guitar and stringed instrument humidifiers online. However, some results can be quite expensive. So a sort of cheaper way to have a humidifier until you can get one of those good humidifiers, or if you just can't get one of those higher end humidifiers, is you can take a plastic Ziploc bag about this big, take a smaller sponge, soak it in water, squeeze it out, make sure you get most of the liquid out so it's not dripping, then put that moist sponge in the bag and close the bag until almost the very end, leave a little spot for the moisture to escape, and keep that in your case. That can act as a humidifier if you don't have access to a store-bought one. I also want to talk about guitar care, because these guitars are expensive if you do decide to opt for a classical model, but also just guitar care of any kind. Guitars, like I said before, the wood is very fragile. It is susceptible to high and low temperatures, which means that you shouldn't leave your guitar inside a car overnight, inside a particularly hot or cold building. You should always try and keep your guitar within a good humidity range and a good temperature range. Something else that you will need for classical guitar is a chair that I am sitting on right now, one that preferably doesn't have armrests, because when we play, those armrests are going to get in the way. You cannot play classical guitar standing up in the style just because of how I'm going to talk about how we hold it. It just doesn't work. So if you have a guitar with a strap, you're going to still want to sit down to try and learn the classical guitar technique. I also want to talk about footstools. So in classical guitar, because of the way that we hold the guitar, you're going to need something called a footstool that boosts your left leg up. Now, if you go and look for guitar footstool, you can find some online. However, for people who don't have access to those kind of products online, or just if you don't have your footstool with you and you still need to play guitar properly, what you can do is you can take any item, so maybe a yoga block, something that is about this much in width, and put that under your left leg and prop your left leg up on that thing. So right now I am using my hard case. I am laying it flat on the ground and I am putting my foot on top of it. So that way my left leg is boosted to where I need it for the guitar. The right leg is down. So that is just a hack for if you can't have a footstool, or if you don't have a footstool with you, but you still want to get into that proper posture of how you hold the classical guitar. That being said, let's talk about proper posture and how we hold our classical guitar. So first of all, you're going to want to sit on the front part of your chair. The way that my instructor always taught it to me is that you pretend that there's like a little cat sitting behind you, and you do not want to squish the cat with your back. So don't sit back like this. Don't also sit way too forward on your chair so that you're about to fall off, but on the front edge of your seat is a good place to play. Also, for health reasons, you're going to want to keep your back straight. So when we hold our guitar, this groove right here, remember how we talked about how the left leg is always elevated with that footstool or our workaround? That is where this groove goes. So this groove goes on top of your left leg so that this part of the guitar sits in between your legs. For reference, here's a better angle to show you how the guitar should be. So this part should go in between your legs. This groove goes on top of the left leg that is elevated. Now, when we're talking about where our left and right arm goes, let's start with our right arm. So if we're thinking about our right arm right here, you can kind of see a little indentation sometimes when you look at your arm and you fold it slightly. So not right here, not where the joint is when we push our arm this way, but slightly before, about right here. So my elbow is here. Right here is where you want your arm to meet the guitar. So you want to put that arm right there so you've got that little inch between your elbow, and you're going to drape your hand right here so that your fingers end up over the sound hole. So we also want to keep our wrist parallel to the strings. We don't want our wrist to go out like this. We don't want our wrist to be bent like this. This part of your thumb should not be touching the body of the guitar. There shouldn't be any part of your arm touching the body of the guitar except for this part of the arm right here that touches the curve on this end. So that is how you will situate your right hand. Next, I want to just put in a word about nail care. Now, for classical guitar, you need to have short nails, unfortunately. This means for people who like to wear acrylic nails, unfortunately, you cannot play classical guitar with acrylic nails. It is totally possible to play with painted nails, but the length of your nails does matter. So I would say even my nails are a little long right now. You want to be able to not see that nail when you're holding your finger up like this. You want to just be able to see the finger pad. I also just want to mention that your wrist being parallel to the strings and making sure to keep an eye on that is extremely important when we play classical guitar. Because take it from me, as someone who actually developed carpal tunnel and wrist problems and now has to wear a brace when I play guitar for long amounts of time or when I'm doing stuff with my wrist, if you do hold that wrist in uncomfortable ways for a long amount of time, you will develop problems with your wrist. So try to make sure that your wrist is properly held when you are playing classical guitar. When we're talking about the left hand, obviously we know that our left hand goes up here to touch the frets. However, what I want to talk about is the thumb first. Now the thumb, when you're looking at the back of the neck, your thumb should be in the middle of the guitar. Often in movies and TV, we see people who play with their thumb like this. Now for other styles of guitar, that is okay because the neck is usually thinner. However, with classical guitar, we want our thumb to be in the center on the back, so that way we can accurately reach all of these strings without hurting our wrist. We also want to be able to slide up and down the neck for when we get to those types of pieces that need that mechanism. So you're going to also, when we're thinking about left hand, something that is super important is leaving a space between the palm of your hand and the side of the neck. So we should not be playing like this, where the palm of our hand is touching the guitar. We want to leave a little space right here so that it's almost like a C shape with your hand, and we never want to crush that C. So put together, put the guitar onto the correct spot on your arm, fingers go over the sound hole, thumb in the correct position with space left, palm not touching the end of the guitar. The groove of the guitar should be going onto your left leg, and the fat part of the guitar should be sitting in between your legs. Also, something important to discuss when we're talking about the posture of guitar is shoulders. Another issue that you can have if you play classical guitar for long amounts of time is that if you are holding your shoulders up, this happens mostly in the left shoulder because of the way that our arm is. If you are holding tenseness in that shoulder or holding the shoulder up, that can cause extreme problems down the road for shoulder pain. So always make sure that when you are playing classical guitar, your head is held high, you're sitting up straight in your back is away from the chair, and your shoulders are relaxed with your hands in the correct place.